Less Taken contains content that may not be suitable for all audiences. Listeners' discretion is advised.
Less Taken.
Arnold Hinshaw plays the organ in total darkness. Well after the children go to sleep, and well after he and his wife Ginger should be asleep too, his fingers continue to dance wildly across the ivory, playing notes that clash and create a discordant symphony. He hasn't slept in days. He hasn't gone to work for even longer. And Ginger can't count the hours she's lost, haunted by her husband's cacophony, the relentless dissonance echoing out through the wide, worn, and tattered hallways. Ginger doesn't know how much more she can take. Every time she's worked up the nerve to confront Arnold about his recent obsession with the organ, he's been quick to argue. Where there was once patience in her husband, now there is only rage. When he first found the organ, he used it to entertain the children. Then, he wanted to get better at playing the instrument. He'd stop to join them for dinner or some TV time. Then, he just started pelting out these notes all throughout the night, every night. It's as though he never breaks. She has to do something. She has to say something. And she needs to stick to it this time and not let Arnold have his way. Ginger heads down the hallway, straight into the shadows where Arnold is entranced by the organ. Taking a deep breath first, Ginger reaches out and tugs at Arnold by the shoulder until he faces her. He scowls, as though she's abruptly sobered him up from a dopamine high. His eyes narrow as if to say,
"What do you want?"
With as much confidence as she can muster, Ginger tells her husband all of this needs to stop. They'll get rid of the damn organ if they need to. He can't continue interrupting their sleep like this. He can't keep playing this evil music. She needs her husband back. All the anger washes away from Arnold's face. Perhaps even tears well up in his eyes. There's something desperate about his gaze, something begging, something lost. Hands shaking over the keys, Arnold turns to his wife and says,
"I can't stop playing. The demons, they demand it of me."
You're listening to Summerwind, Part 2, the third story from Less Taken, Season 3. In this episode, we follow the Hinshaw family as they're tormented by unspoken threats inside of Summerwind. Be sure to let us know what you think of this episode when you're done by leaving us a fair rating wherever you're listening or at lesstakenpod.com. I'm CM Humphreys, and this is Less Taken, real-life horror stories from the Midwest. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy Summerwind Part 2. Ginger is afraid of her husband. Not only is there an issue with the incessant organ playing, but he's always angry, always furious. It doesn't take much to get him going, so most of the time, she and the children just let him be. Today, Ginger is the one left in the house. She should be happy to have a moment to reflect and decompress, but she's not. The house won't let her. Ginger makes her way up a large set of winding stairs when she feels a sudden gust cross over her. Then, there's a low, bassy thump from downstairs. Standing in place, she tries to listen in close. Maybe it's not some kind of thump that she's hearing, but a voice. A man's voice. Whispering something she can't quite make out.
Hello? Is there somebody there?
Only silence answers her, and after a few seconds without a response, Ginger continues her way up the wide steps until she reaches a long hallway with over a half dozen doors leading to over a half dozen various rooms, most of which are guest rooms in need of severe renovation. As she makes her way down the hall, she hears the low, bassy sound again, followed by whispers and what can only be the sound of a door slamming shut. Ginger hears the sound of another door shutting behind her. She's certain that there's someone else in the house with her, toying with her, trying to get her to freak out. But why? Without a doubt, someone says her name. Before Ginger can process what she's hearing any further, a sort of mist runs through her. It's almost like a cloud, distorting her vision ahead and then running through her entire body. The only other way she knows how to explain it is, I just saw a ghost. Impatient isn't the word for it. What Arnold is becoming is something much worse. He plays the organ all night and sleeps during the day. When he awakens, he seemingly paces around the room until he can find something to infuriate him. One instance that sticks out in Ginger's mind is when Arnold decides to unleash verbal hell on their little girls when their pet raccoon escapes. There's certainly no way it could get out on its own, in Arnold's mind.
These brats surely let it out, or weren't paying attention, or something. Everything is always their fault.
Ginger tries to intervene, but Arnold continues to yell and swears he won't stop until the girls search every last inch of the property and find the raccoon. There's nothing anyone can do to please Arnold. He's beyond that. Something has taken over Arnold, and the once loving husband and father is now a loose cannon. Before, Ginger would have described her husband as frustrated or quick-tempered. But after these recent events, the only word she can think of to describe Arnold is evil.
Nobody sleeps around here until these damn girls go out and find that damn raccoon. Right now.
Arnold swears that if he has to be the one to find the raccoon, he'll kill it. Unfortunately, Arnold is a man of his word. Normalcy. That's all Ginger wants. Maybe if she and the rest of the family carry out their lives as they would anywhere else under any other set of circumstances, then maybe everything would sort of reset itself. Maybe they could be like any other family in the West Bay Lake area. In an effort to maintain such normalcy, Ginger calls over a few friends, those of which prefer to remain nameless. While she heads into the kitchen to gather up some refreshments, her guests remain in the living room, chatting it up until suddenly, one of them screams. Ginger drops what she's doing and sprints into the room. She finds her guests staring at a swirl of dust by the window as it catches the daylight. For a moment, Ginger is confused, but then she sees it too. That's not just any swirl of dust. It takes a form. It's tall. It's slender. Some of the dust disperse outside of the main cloud. What they're seeing is the silhouette of a human being until it explodes. Ginger's guests, those who she's considered trusted friends, bolt out of the house and flee the property, and Ginger never hears from them again. What's worse is that she's starting to change her mind. Ginger is finally starting to believe in ghosts, and she debates becoming one herself. The woods have become Ginger's best friend. Arnold's strange and often aggressive behavior, the unexplainable sounds and movements in the mansion, her girls crying out all night long, terrified of their own stepfather. Sometimes, Ginger doesn't know what to do. She just breaks down and scurries into the surrounding woods. She spends entire nights there sometimes, just curling up into the fetal position and struggling to sleep on the cold, muddy ground. Anymore, she's too afraid to go back inside of her own home. What's worse, the ghost or her potentially violent husband? As for the rain, the house isn't much better than the woods anyhow. Since Arnold stopped going to work, their funds have dried up. None of the bills are getting paid. Utilities are being turned off. And one of the first things to go is the heat. So, Ginger just hides amongst the towering trees, curled up on the ground, shivering, crying, trying to sleep away the rest of her life. Enough is enough. Ginger can't take the haunting nature of the mansion. She can't handle seeing her daughters in this state of perpetual fear. She reaches out to her father and does her best not to sound too desperate as she essentially begs him to drive out to the island and pick both her and her children up. Like any good father, he agrees and makes the long drive. Ginger watches in the rearview mirror as the mansion and Arnold fade away like a distant memory. Hopefully, all of this will soon become an actual distant memory, because if Ginger has any say, she's never returning to this dream home turned nightmare. She swears she'll never again step foot inside of the Lamont Mansion. Spring, 1972, Ontario, Canada. Although she still spends the bulk of her time reading up on the paranormal and different psychological disorders, Ginger is far away from the Lamont Mansion. She's not even in the same country. She continues to swear she'll never return to that property, not even after she and Arnold sell it off. But she's about to turn back on her word. Raymond arrives at the Lamont Mansion to meet with a realtor. He expects her to greet him at the doorsteps or even in the front hall of the mansion, but instead, he finds her sitting in her car, roadside, still buckled in. He walks over to her car and peers in through the open window. With a sleight of hand, she removes the keys to the house from her pocket and gives them to Raymond. Looking down at the keys, Raymond invites his realtor to come into the house. Perhaps she can give them the lay of the land before Ginger does, if she ever does. The realtor shakes her head and forces a smile. She tells Raymond the mailbox is as far as she'll go. And with that, she waves goodbye and zooms back down the main road. Ginger hasn't told too many people about what she experienced during her time with Arnold at the Lamont Mansion. She gave him most of the story on the way back to Canada. He listens to his daughter, doing his best to hear her out without buzzing in her own skepticism. Ginger hasn't told too many people about what she experienced during her time with Arnold at the Lamont Mansion. She gave Raymond most of the story on the way up to Canada. Raymond listens to his daughter, doing his best to hear her out without buzzing in with his own skepticism. He doesn't believe in ghosts or really anything paranormal, but he does hear the desperation and the fear when Ginger recounts those strange events. Even so, he assumes she's just overstressed and overwhelmed. She's simply transferring her emotions onto the house. Maybe it's difficult to cope with the divorce or the renovation project gone awry. More to the point, Raymond isn't going to be deterred by some folklore or legends of ghosts and the like. He also has the resources to actually complete a full renovation. He has a son recently discharged from the army too, who just happens to be seeking out a major project to occupy both his mind and his time. Maybe Raymond can turn the house into a lodge or a hotel or some sort of restaurant, a tourist attraction of sorts. Raymond and his son are hopeful they can turn the house around, making it any number of these things. Once they step into the mansion, they realize fixing it up is going to be a much steeper hill to climb than they imagined. The doors have been left open, windows shattered, drywall cracked and broken. Rodents, squatters, and vandals have all ransacked nearly every inch of all 32 rooms. All the hallways and even old photographs left behind are left covered in spray-painted profanities. Nevertheless, Raymond is still certain he can overcome the odds and create a successful business. He's settling on the idea of a hotel and restaurant combination. He's not too worried about purchasing the home and trying to restore it. His only concern is going to be, how will Ginger take the news?
Hello?
Ginger answers the phone one night and instantly regrets it. It's her father, and she can't believe the words coming out of his mouth. Raymond explains to his daughter, ever since he first saw the mansion for himself, he hasn't been able to get it out of his mind. On first impression, he felt that the house called out to him. It still calls out to him. It's as though the house is begging for his help. Somewhere, underneath all the weathering and decay, is something truly beautiful. Raymond informs Ginger that he intends on purchasing the old Lamont Mansion and transforming it into what he calls the Summerwind Hotel. He swears that everyone in the family will prosper from its success. He pleads with his daughter, and ultimately, Ginger agrees to return to the mansion and give him an in-depth tour, as well as help him out with his renovation dreams. Deja vu. Ginger watches her father hang up the phone with force. He rubs his brow and shakes his head. She knows it's another callback from another contractor. Raymond calls them and offers to pay them for their work on Summerwind, and they all accept his offers until he mentions that Summerwind Hotel is actually the Lamont Mansion. Then, they call back to decline or cancel. Others just go ghost. Raymond can't make sense of any of it, but it's all too familiar to Ginger. She knows they're going to have to do most of the work for themselves. Ginger doesn't intend on being in the house any more than she absolutely has to, though. So what if this frustrates her father? She's seen too much, suffered too much. Raymond's son, also Ray, returns to Summerwind on his own one evening to kill off some time working on smaller projects, like mowing the lawn and trimming down some lumber. To him, it should be a nice relaxing evening. None of the work should really be too arduous, he imagines. Right off the bat, the lawnmower stalls out and begins to smoke. Next, the chainsaw follows suit. Ray is a little spooked by the coincidence, but he's not going to let some faulty equipment prevent progress. Realizing he'll have to attend to the outdoor chores another day, he heads into the mansion and up to the second story. To his surprise, he's immediately hit with a bone-chilling gust of wind. Is there a window open somewhere or something? Ray continues to make his way around the second story, searching for the source of the unexpected breeze. The mansion is in terrible condition, but even still, there shouldn't be that much of a draft coming through the walls. When he rounds the corner and faces the hallway full of doors, he sees something. He doesn't know how to explain it. It's like a shadow made of dust, and it's coming right for him. Ray doesn't say a word about what he saw inside of Summerwind to anyone. Not even his father when he questions why he's returned home so early. However, Ginger isn't afraid to talk about ghosts. She's visiting her father one evening, hoping to talk him out of the Summerwind Hotel concept. If he won't accept something paranormal is going on there, then maybe he'll respect her wishes because of the trauma it brought upon her. Raymond is stubborn, though. He insists that the old Lamont Mansion itself wants him to carry through with the vision. He says this half-jokingly, but he's always spoken of some odd connection with the building. While she rattles off every last negative thing about Summerwind she can come up with, Ginger can't help but notice her brother, Ray, shaking in his chair. Sometimes, his fingernails dig into the denim along his thighs. When they're not, he can't resist chewing on them. A greasy sweat builds along his forehead. When Ginger finally turns away from her father to address her brother, Ray shakes his head and insists that he's fine, but he doesn't stop chewing at his nails. Ginger informs Ray that while studying up on all things paranormal, she stumbled upon some texts on hypnosis and taught herself a few tricks. She would be glad to see if she could get him to stop biting at his fingernails. More than happy to hear his sister speak of anything but ghosts, Ray agrees to let Ginger give hypnosis a go. She begins simply by holding a pen in front of his eyes, encouraging him to follow it slowly, back and forth. Skeptical at first, Ray follows his sister's lead as Ginger tells him to center in on her and only her voice. She provides instructions as to how he should feel. She brings him down, puts him at ease. Then, she asks him about the mansion. Ginger should have stopped there and left her brother alone in his trance-like state. But she felt like she couldn't convince him to stop biting his nails unless she discerned the source of his stress. With one question about Summerwind, Ginger gets her answer. Ray convulses at the edge of the family room couch, next to Ginger and across from his father, Raymond. He groans, and spittle drips from the corners of his lips. Sweat starts to pour down his face. Ginger leans toward him, assuring Ray that everything is going to be just fine. In response, Ray lets out a hair-raising groan and spits out the words,
I hate my family. I have 7 children. I hate them all.
Ginger rummages through a nearby end table and grabs a cross. Holding it up to her brother's eyes, Ginger begins to repeat prayer after prayer to demand that whatever evil possesses her brother lets him go.
I hate my family. I hate my children. They are weak. I am strong. You are weak. Strong.
Thank you for listening to Summerwind Part 2, the third story from Less Taken Season 3. Originally, this story was going to be a 2-parter, but we feel that we need just one more episode to get it right. So next Wednesday, be sure to tune back in and check out a preview of Summerwind Part 3, in which we wrap up Ginger and Raymond's haunting experiences inside of the mansion, briefly review their critics' claims, and explore the demise of the mansion itself. In the meantime, be sure to let us know what you think of the show by leaving a fair rating and review at lesstakenpod.com or wherever you're listening. We also tend to give out goodies to those who leave reviews. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe with auto downloads on and tell a friend. If none of that is your thing, you can always buy us a cup of coffee at buymeacupofcoffee.com/lesstakenpod. You can choose to buy us a cup of coffee every month or just make it a one-time deal. It all truly helps. Lastly, visit lesstakenpod.com for additional information, sources, media, and merch. There, you can also write to us. If you're checking out the Less Taken merch, save 15% on t-shirts by using the code Summerwind at checkout. Follow us before we follow you on Facebook and Instagram under the handle @lesstakenpod. If you didn't catch it, on Instagram we dropped an early illustrated sample of this episode well before the preview. A quick note on our storytelling. While we do our best to stick to the facts, we sometimes take creative liberties to maintain narrative cohesiveness. Another note. Either Ray or Carl was the son of Raymond and worked on the Summerwind Mansion/hotel. Ray popped up in our research more often, but we would like to acknowledge that this detail isn't always quite clear. I'm Sam Humphreys, and this is Less Taken, real-life horror stories from the Midwest. Once again, thanks for listening, and I hope you join us next Wednesday for a preview of Part 3. And finally, the conclusion of Summerwind.